Hello, listeners. Welcome to episode 2 of this listening series. I'll be doing some sketching and talking. Maybe you can sketch along with me. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Now, let's get to it. On the afternoon of January 15, 1919, patrolman Frank McManus was walking his beat at Commercial Street in North Boston when he heard what sounded like machine gun fire. Quickly wheeling around to see the source of the noise, he was greeted by a 25-foot wall of dark liquid hurtling toward him at a pace of 35 miles an hour. He retreated as fast as he could to a call box on a side street and dialed for immediate backup. 4 years prior, in 1915, construction of a new storage tank began on the site of the Purity Distilling Company. It was to stand 50 feet tall with a 90-foot diameter and designed to house 2.5 million gallons of molasses at a time when it was in very high demand. Molasses was a cheaper alternative to sugar and was used to produce industrial alcohol for munitions, fuel for explosives, and even rum. It was overseen by Arthur P. Gell on a rushed project timeline of only 2 months. Gell was not a structural engineer or a builder. He was a treasurer for the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, and as such had no experience reading blueprints or architectural plans. Due to the expedient construction timeline, the tank did not undergo any sort of preliminary testing. As it was a container and not a building, safety measures were not considered. It would groan when filled, and molasses would leak from the bottom, much to the joy of the neighborhood children who would collect its remnants. The body of the container was painted brown to hide the leakage. The steel used in the construction was only half the thickness that was required for a tank of its size. After World War I, molasses demand dropped. Historians have speculated that the distilling company had greatly increased the rate of its production around this time to outrace prohibition, which took effect 1 year later. On the morning of January 15, 1919, the distilling company had just received a shipload of molasses for its upcoming production. This particular January saw a sudden and unseasonably warm temperature shift. This is typically referred to as a January thaw or false spring. This delivery, as all such deliveries, had been warmed to decrease viscosity for transfer. The combination of the new warm molasses and the old cold molasses created a thermal expansion within the tank, causing it to burst open and collapse at approximately 12:30 p.m. It was such a pleasant day that the distilling company superintendent, William White, decided to go shopping with his wife and therefore was not present at the time of the explosion. Witnesses in close proximity to the tank mentioned feeling the ground shake, and the tank itself was reported to have let out a roar, followed by a rumble that has been compared to a passing train. This was soon followed by a thunderclap and the sound of gunfire as the rivets exploded from the surface of the tank. The great force of the molasses, by sheer virtue of its viscosity, which is nearly double that of water, caused the explosion to produce a wave of molasses that was 25 feet at its peak, and enough power to tip a streetcar off its tracks. Nearby buildings took catastrophic damage from the force of the wave. The Engine 31 firehouse was torn from its foundation and cast in the direction of the Boston Harbor. Amateur boxer Martin Clougherty awoke to debris and sticky liquid in his bed. He raced to rescue his siblings and mother, the latter of whom was unfortunately claimed by the flood. The wave caught railway trestles, prompting the engineers to quickly close the line before a train had a chance to crash into the debris. 116 cadets from the USS Nantucket showed up as first responders to assist in rescue efforts, heroically retrieving the 150 injured survivors from the wreckage. The molasses was so thick as to make people and the horses difficult to locate and extract. A 2016 Harvard study concluded that the molasses cooled and thickened quickly as it rushed through the streets, which resulted in victims suffocating before help could reach them, in liquid that was 3 feet deep in some places. Rescuers used chisels, saws, and brooms to free the entrapped individuals. Horses that were mired in the sticky syrup were shot, as there was no hope in freeing them. A makeshift relief station was set up to help the 150 survivors that were rescued. Of the 21 dead, most were crushed or drowned. The cleanup effort took weeks and required 87,000 man-hours to complete. Salt water from a fireboat was used to remove the molasses, and sand to absorb it. Residents of Boston say that on particularly hot days, the scent of molasses was present in the air, even decades later. In the aftermath, a class action lawsuit was brought upon the United States Industrial Alcohol Company. The USIA would later attempt to claim no fault of their own, instead insisting that Italian anarchists had sabotaged the tank, leading to the disaster. However, in 1925, after 6 years of investigation, 120 lawsuits, and testimony from 3,000 witnesses, a special report was released. In it, Special Investigator Hugh Ogden confirmed that the incident was due to structural failure, causing breach of common safety. The USIA was charged $628,000 to be paid out to the victims of the flood and their families. The incident highlighted the importance of proper engineering standards and ethical business conduct. It clearly showed the dangers to public safety when such matters were not properly addressed. In the years that followed, many laws and regulations governing construction were adjusted as a result of this incident. Such construction projects now require oversight by a licensed architect and civil engineer. The tank was never rebuilt. Instead, the site became a rail yard in the 20th century and is now a recreational complex. The vapors from the sickly sweet goo have long since dissipated. The last bit of hardened syrup power-washed into history a century ago. But the memory lingers, and the image of the big wave. If you have any notes of your own on this matter, listeners, please leave them in the comments section below. As always, keep your pen to paper, and I'll see you all next time.